It's not easy. It's actually worse when you have children because they will use those children to manipulate, to hurt you as much, to hurt the person as much as possible. They do not think about the child. They just think about causing as maximum damage to you.
Hello and welcome to Obehi Podcast. I'm your host, Obehi A14, and I strongly believe that everyone has a story to share. Now let's get started into this episode.
When you really need to have support outside when you are dealing, especially when you're dealing with children. You can have conversations with them in a way that's appropriate for their age so that they understand what's happening. But in terms of having rights to the children, access and all of that, you need to seek legal advice, and you need to try your best to find legal assistance that actually have an understanding of this kind of abuse. In the UK now, we have something, it's illegal now. We have something called coercive control that is now illegal. And a lot of narcissists use that. So it's coercive control. And it's now you have to prove that that's actually going on in your relationship. But thank goodness that is now made illegal here. You can actually pursue charges against your perpetrator on those grounds. So seeking advice, seeking help from somebody that actually understands specifically those kind of nuances, because not all organizations, not all family law solicitors, attorneys, all of that thing, they don't always know, and that's why narcissists can get away with so much. So it's about seeking out the right help. And that's really important. You're going to have to do your research. You're going to have to do your research because it is not easy. It is not easy. It's not an easy path. And they cause a lot of pain and devastation. Even when you've gone, they will still try. They will come after you. It's about education. It's about education. And this happens, that scenario that you explained, that you've just shared, happens time and time again. And that's because the system, law courts do not understand about narcissistic personality disorder. The likelihood, from what you've just said, that is typical. It sounds like the woman in this case probably was or had very strong narcissistic tendencies, and they do lie and they do say things like that. So it's really about education. Institutions like the courts, lawyers, solicitors, all of these people, police need the education. They need to understand what narcissistic personality disorder is, how that will manifest, and how they can use the system to cause more harm and devastation. Need to know. That's the key. Education is the key. It's a very, very difficult one. Remember that narcissists are very, very manipulative and controlling. What you'll find is that oftentimes they manipulate the children to the point where they will do anything for the perpetrator. So they will lie for the perpetrator because that's what they will be groomed. Remember that when you are in a relationship, for the narcissist, the child is a tool. They don't see the child as their child to be loved and nurtured. They are a tool. They are, again, a tool, just like the mum is or the father is. Everybody is a tool to be used as long as they're getting the end result that they want. They don't connect with the child in the same way that a normal person would, but the child, that's their parent. They love them, so they will do whatever they need to do, whatever they've been asked to do or told to do by the perpetrator, they will do. If there's more than one child in the family, one of them will become the golden child, usually. And that happens quite often. And the other child would be the scapegoat. So they play one off against the other. So you have one that is embraced by the narcissist and can do no wrong, and the other child is the scapegoat, as I said. So there's a lot going on. Now that's not my area of expertise, but I've had clients who have had children and I've had to refer them on. And that's the other thing. I understand my scope of practice. I know when I can pick up when something else is needed here. So it's actually to bring in maybe a therapist to actually work with the children to be able to help them to understand what is happening to them, but that's what will happen. You will get, there's a lot of manipulation that goes on, and they can really mess up the children. You can, there are organizations out there that work with narcissistic parents. So there's a few groups that work specifically with for children who have had narcissistic mothers, particularly, and that in itself, narcissistic mother causes such damage to their children, and there are organizations that support women, daughters of narcissistic mothers. So for me, it's finding the right resources for the situation that somebody might bring to me. So there'll be times when it will be just me, but then there'll be times when I will refer on and say, this person or this organization, I know for a fact will be able to support you fully in this, and I am there for when you need it. But it's understanding what resources that person that presents to you will need, and be able to make sure that they get the help that they need, because it's not about me, it's about making sure that they get what they need to recover. And that's how I work. Yeah. So it's very, very complex. Yeah. They probably would I'm laughing because they probably wouldn't necessarily understand. I mean, this is a relatively new, well, it's not a new phenomenon, but I think it's new in terms of awareness around it. Again, it's about education. I mean, it's people even here in the UK hardly know anything about it. So, in Jamaica, it's going to be, and other places, not necessarily just Jamaica, but I think it's about raising awareness and the understanding that there's something inherently wrong in this relationship. So it's difficult because you're just going to be, it's difficult to get the understanding. It's difficult to get the understanding. And what I've found is that a lot of people suffer in relationships, and they stay in those relationships, and there's nowhere to go. I'll share a story. I was working with a mental health organisation here in the UK, and I was at a meeting in the actual mental health place. And as I was coming out, I was having a chat with the manager, and a lady walked up to me as I was talking, and I turned around and I said, "Oh, hello, good afternoon." And the woman just stared at me some time, and then she walked off. The manager said to me, "Oh, no, she's not going to talk to you." And she told me what had happened. Now, this was I thought this woman was a lot older than she actually was. Bright, intelligent, switched on, dynamic woman who met somebody who basically emotionally abused her. Now I look back on that situation and know that actually she was a victim of narcissistic abuse to the point where she lost her mind. And that happens a lot, but we don't recognize. It's only now I can look back and think, oh my goodness, this and this and this happened to this woman. That's what that was about for her. But many, many women end up in mental institutions because of narcissistic abuse, and it's not been recognized. The damage has not been recognized, that it's been caused by abuse, narcissistic abuse. Everybody recognizes, as I said earlier, domestic violence, but they're not necessarily going to recognize the emotional abuse. It's a big area, so much work to be done. And that's why it's important for me to be able to raise awareness about it. In the African Caribbean communities, it's not something that we talk about a lot. It's not something, because there's this whole, I don't know, certainly for the Caribbeans, it's like you shut your mouth, you don't talk out your business. You keep it quiet. You don't share that information. So women particularly are suffering in silence. You don't speak your business to anybody. That's how I grew up as well. That's another thing that we found in that, you don't, especially the older generation, you're not going to share that information with anybody else. That's why I found it quite vulnerable when I started this work, because I had to stand up. I had to find my voice. A lot of the time we have to, as women, because I'm talking specifically about women, we have to redefine what it means to be powerful as a woman, as a Black woman. And part of that is finding our voice to be able to speak and to share that experience that we had. When I first started my podcast, and I remember the day that it was ready to release, and I was getting some help from a friend, and she said to me, you need to share this now. And I shared it in all my private platforms, all the different groups that I was in, but I never shared it on my personal page. And she came back to me that afternoon and said, why have you not shared it on your page? You need to be sharing that. You need to be sharing. And that's because my friends, my family, everybody that knows me differently outside of my profession would know what happened to me. And I was scared that people would judge me based on my story. And I had to really dig deep. And it was about being visible, but it was about speaking my truth. And I remember sitting there thinking, oh my God, I really don't want to be doing this. Why have I done this? Why did I do it? And I just hit the button and it went. And I was like shaking because people would hear that. And within minutes, people were coming back to me. I was getting private messages, people commenting on Facebook and saying, wow, Marcia, thank you for sharing that story. It resonated with so many people. And this is the thing, we need to be speaking about our experiences, not in a way to beat up on men. It's not what this is about. It's about educating. We need to speak about what's happening. We need to bring these things to light so that we're helping not just us as women, but we're helping everybody, because it's not just about us. It's about the men in our lives. I've got sons. I have sons. I have grandsons.
If you enjoy this podcast, make sure you subscribe so you never miss any of our future episodes. Rate and review Obehi Podcast and share with your friends who might need it. I remain Obehi Ewanfo. Thank you so much for listening, and talk to you in the next episode.